Energy Work 101. This is lesson number 4. We're going to talk about holding and sending energy work. Yes, Carly Cat asks if the lesson 4 materials are included on the test. Yup, they certainly are. There's at least 2 questions on the test that have to do with what we're about to talk about. Before everybody freaks out, there is a test. It's linked in the Google Classroom. Think of it as a pause, an assessment, a moment for you to stop and go, do I really know this stuff? That's all it is. The test is due next week, the 18th. So I'm giving you a whole week to work on it. It's open book, open note, open teacher. You can ask me if you're like, I don't understand this at all. And I can walk you through it. I won't tell you the answer explicitly, and I'll walk you through it. Okay, so energy work. Remember, please, energy work is magic, divination, and worship. And it always follows the same pattern. You connect with an energetic source. You raise energy. You hold and imbue that energy with intent, and then you release that energy. This lesson is the 3rd step. Okay? Holding energy. And visualizing your intent to put into your energy. We have talked about connecting with your energetic source. That's grounding. Grounding is a kind of connecting with an energetic source. We've talked about raising energy. That was last week. Connecting with an energetic source, and instead of allowing excess energy to flow back into the source, you let it just keep building up inside of yourself, raising the energy. And then you hold it. You have to get a grip on it. You have to hold it on. The nitty-gritty for holding energy. You're going to conceptualize how you hold energy through your personal framework for dealing with energy. I brought up your framework last week when we were talking about raising energy. Your framework is your understanding of how energy works, what you're connecting to, how you're connecting to it, and your mental grip on all of these ideas and concepts. When I say things like, you're going to hold the energy, some people visualize that as holding it within their self. That they become like a balloon and go, and like they have expanded. Some people see it as creating a reservoir of energy next to yourself, like a little ball of energy that you can, it's floating there in astral space near you, available for you to tap. And some people see it as holding energy in a layer of your energetic body. If you hold energy within yourself, perfectly valid. Just be cautious that when you're doing your magic, which is going to be the next couple of lessons, by the way, we're really ramping up. When you're moving that energy, when you are making it do something, if your paradigm was that you hold the energy inside yourself, be careful that you don't accidentally drain too much of yourself into your magic. When it comes time to move the energy that you've imbued with your into the world to do work, if that energy has become synonymous with yourself, you can go too far. And this is a problem for a lot of people, because this is where people wind up, fainting, passing out, suddenly having to take a nap, being extra exhausted after doing energy work. It's because they didn't draw up enough energy, and they put too much of their own personal, you need this to keep breathing energy into their magic. So You can create a reservoir to hold energy, and this can be a purely mental construct. Something that exists only in the world of energy, in your mind, in the astral space that you have access to. Or you can visualize it as being attached to and centered in a physical object. That physical object could be like a crystal, a pretty rock. It could be a jar. You could directly pull your energy from whatever energetic source you've connected to, pull it, imbue it, and immediately move it into your spell object. So if you've made a puppet or a box or a candle that you're imbuing with energy, or whatever thingy physical representation for your spell that you're working with, the energy comes up, it moves into you, it is imbued with your intent, and then it goes directly into the thing. And you move as a part of a cycle, like grounding. Only in grounding, you connect to an energy, you bring energy into yourself, and then you release excess energy back into the original source. In this, you have connected to energy, brought it into yourself, and you are putting it in something different. You're going to also hold energy in layers or segments or parts of your energetic body, depending on how you personally conceptualize your energetic body to be. This is getting into like the aura, the subtle etheric body, currently in photography. Elia says, so using yourself as a conduit instead of a generator. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. That is the heart of energy work. And if you have questions in the chat, just put a red question mark emoji on it so that I can see it at a glance. Please and thank. So you've connected to an energy source. You're pulling energy into yourself. This is where the visualization becomes really, really important. And yes, keeping in mind folks with aphantasia. Remember, I'm using a broader definition of what visualization is. It's not just seeing with your mind's eye. It's holding an entire concept in your head. The whole thing. It's a learned skill. And it improves with practice over time. Please start small so that you don't give yourself a nosebleed. Visualization. Practice it before you start trying to do magic. I mean, you can do it at the same time. I'm not your mom. Go nuts, but you're going to give yourself a headache. Because holding both raised energy and your visualized intent at the same time, a little bit tricky. Slightly difficult. Bastian said, I almost fainted the first time I did that. Yeah. It's a learned skill. You can learn to do this. It's going to take a minute. Carrie says, I have total aphantasia and concepts are the only way I can think. In a way that almost would make it like easier because you hold the entire concept of the spell in your head, whereas people who don't have aphantasia, who can visualize, are going to be holding a whole lot more complex, like the concept and also a visual, a picture and maybe a smell and also what will it sound like? What will it feel like? All of those bits of information all at the same time while connecting energetically, pulling energy and holding on to it all at once. The reason why an awful lot of people's spells don't work They're not doing this. They're not pulling energy. They're not holding energy. They're not imbuing it with an intent. They've skipped all of these steps. And this is the bedrock. This is foundational energy work. If you skip this stuff, all you did is you made a pretty drawing and you made a candle slightly sticky. Good job. Lily says, this is a bit unrelated, but on TV, is this the same field as when people do magical work and then faint and get a nosebleed? It can be. It's because there's enough people who are into the occult who do know this, who also go into fields like entertainment, who go, yeah, if you really tried to do that, you're going to get a nosebleed. You're going to pass the hell out. It's a lot of energy that you're moving through yourself. I have to, there's I'll have to look it up and find it, but they did a survey of people in magical fields doing, witchcraft and Wicca and Druidry and all of this stuff. And they asked them, okay, so rank for us these various magical things. So like manifesting, a candle, shape-shifting into a frog, turning someone else into a frog. There's a list of different things that they had on there, and like, how much energy do these things take? And it turns out that pretty much everybody listed things in the same order, from what takes a whole lot of energy to what doesn't take a whole lot of energy. So like, making something out of nothing takes a lot of energy. Like a lot. Shape-shifting takes a lot of energy, but not as much as manifesting something from nothing. Changing already existing matter takes less energy than just making matter exist. And it didn't matter what paradigm the people were working under, and none of these people communicated with one another, but all their rankings of how much energy things took were similar. I know, right? I have to find that list. It's really cool. So, for both, just practicing your visualization and practicing imbuing energy and visualizing, start small. I know there's that trite little thing about aim for the stars, because or aim for the moon, and even if you miss, you still up in amongst the stars. That's not a good idea when it comes to doing this, because you can aim for the moon, and if you miss, space is a vacuum, and you're gonna not like it there. And yeah, energy transformation is a technique. Shape-shifting's a thing. It's an advanced thing, and I'm not teaching you. Remember, raising energy, instead of creating a circuit for energy to flow through you and then right back out again. The energy comes in and stays there. Okay? Then it's raising. You're going to pull. You're going to raise it in. You can allow it to passively fill you, and you can grab a hold of it and go, come here. It's a question of visualizing what you're doing as you're doing it, which means that, yes, sometimes when you're raising energy, you're visualizing two different things at the same time. Visualize the process of raising energy and why you're raising that energy, the intent you want to put into it. It can be done. It takes practice. Practice! He wasn't cut in half. He cut himself in half. Lily said, it's chill because even if I miss the moon, I'll be hanging out with the man who was cut in half. He did that to himself. And of course, grounding excess energy after you're done. And Not Coda asks, what happens if you don't, or you forget to, ground the excess energy? Have you ever had a day in which you were just like anxious all the time and kind of manic, bouncing off the walls, like impossible to concentrate, like wackadoodle, almost like being high? That's what happens if you don't ground. It can cause, it causes behavioral changes, which can occasionally lead you to making poor decisions. If you're holding enough energy that you don't let go, it can kind of singe you a little bit. The day after, you will feel like you have the worst hangover of your entire existence. You'll feel dehydrated and tired. You'll have a headache. It can spark a migraine. Because when you sleep, sleep is a grounding state. It automatically rebalances you. So you will eventually pass out and go to sleep. And it might take a while because you're carrying excess energy. So you're probably going to be pretty wired. And then eventually you will go to sleep and you will wake up the next day and feel like pounded bantha poo. Like bad. Dried out under the sun bison poop. It's unfortunate. So it's better just to make a habit of grounding. You know, because grounding fixes two different problems. Either you're holding too much energy or you put too much into the work. Either way, grounding fixes that by rebalancing you so that you're not holding too much energy. Or if you did put too much into the work, hey, you can fix that. Ivy says, what's the easiest way to ground? The fastest, easiest way to ground, if I run into somebody who's been doing magical stuff and is not grounded, I make them eat. Sit down, drink water, eat food. Because drinking water, eating food are both grounding things. They will drop your energy back down. They knock you back down closer to ground state. Take a bath. Go to the bathroom. There are certain biological processes that are inherently cleansing, shall we say. Alley Cat asks, a couple of days ago I grounded into the sun using sunlight, and I felt so energized rather than grounding to the earth and resulting in feeling calmer. So does grounding in different ways equal different results? The energy source that you connect with changes the energy that you're filling yourself with. So if you ground into the earth, you're grounding into earth energy, which is very calm. If you're in the northern hemisphere, we're still technically in winter. So you're grounding into an energy that is currently in this half of the planet experiencing winter, rest, the fallow time, the renewal before it wakes up in spring. Ground into the ground during the height of summer. Feel the difference there. Ground into it in autumn. Totally different vibe. Ground into the sun, the moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars. Grounding into each of those different energy sources is going to give you a different effect. Yes. Carly Cat says, from a scientific standpoint, eating and drinking triggers your parasympathetic system and lets your body know that you are safe. It also shifts your excess energy into digestion rather than just going out. That's why it's the fastest way. I do it to myself in a pinch. If I'm like, man, I am so like, blah, 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 I'm gonna eat a cookie. Calms me right down. Just. It's like touching your ground wire. Boom, you're done. And then oftentimes I can find the mental discipline to formally ground and center and reinforce my shields. That's why eating and drinking is a good way to bring a panic attack down as well, says Carly Cat. Possibly. Aaliyah says, maybe the reason winter is the season associated with the earth element, because it's when that part of the earth is grounding itself. And Parchmento says, I wonder if that's why the cakes and ale tradition started. It is. In Wiccan ceremonies, there's a section of the ritual after everything's done in which you share, cakes and ale, so a drink and a food. You don't do that before you do the work, do you? You do it after. It's a grounding exercise. That's what it's for. Yes, and Super Spy Elliot says, you're not you when you're hungry. You're really not. You're not you when you're hungry. You're not you when you're holding too much energy. Eat a Snickers bar. You'll feel better. When it comes to projecting and receiving energy, because the next two lessons are about projecting energy. Haptic feedback. So that means moving your body. Getting your physical anatomy involved helps with visualization. If you can make it as much, if you can get it to where it includes as much of your self in as many different ways as possible, your spell work will be stronger. Your magic will be stronger. So things that smell right, they have to look right, they need to sound in line with whatever it is that you're doing. That's why there's, in some places, there's a fascination with the hertz at which a tone is emitted, and getting your body involved. And from a altered state of consciousness and biofeedback point of view, yes, getting your body involved is super duper important. So that's why in magic, there's a lot of pointing and gesturing. They use a ritual blade, the athame, to direct energy. You put it in your projective hand and use it to move energy down. It's a tool that's been imbued with the ability to help you move energy. But how do you know which hand's your projecting hand and which one's your receiving hand? Your projecting hand is the one through which energy flows out most easily, and your receptive hand allows for greater perception of energy. So here's how you figure it out. This is an exercise that you can do, and it will show you how, which hand is more receptive, which hand is more projective. I'm strongly right hand dominant and right eye dominant, but my projective hand is my left hand. I don't use it as much, and when I do, it's because I mean it. My right hand is my receptive hand. So get a deck of cards. Oh, you only missed a little bit, Robin. Don't worry about joining late. Get a deck of cards, or a tarot deck, or an oracle deck. Shuffle it a little bit, and then lay the cards out face down. Just fan them in front of you face down. Now, which hand do you feel most likely to reach out in front of that deck and run your fingers over the back of it until you feel which card should you draw? Switch back and forth. Use both hands. Experiment. Which one's stronger? Which one feels better? Which one is most likely to give you an accurate, a better feedback, a better feeling when you do that? That's your receptive hand. And by definition, the other one's your projective hand. Parchmento says, what if it feels like your projecting hand and receiving hand can change? I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but when I do energy work, I feel like I can almost control what hand the energy comes out of. It can change. And it's your energy. You can send it out of whichever hand you feel like. This is one of those things. It's a very old school idea. Like old school Wicca was way up on the, well, which one's your receptive hand? So if you run across this idea in any of the older books or older texts or copies of rituals that say, with your projective hand, because sometimes they will include little instructions like that, that's what they're talking about. Elias says, what to do when you're ambidextrous? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Pick one. There are some schools of thought that say you get better results if you use the same hand every time. Experiment, find out. Because maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Carly Cat says, my right hand is both. I've tried both for different things, but my left side has always been different. Yeah. That happens. And it's okay. I included this because it's interesting. It's interesting, and you may occasionally run across it in some of the more old school books about energy stuff and witchcraft and Wicca and stuff. They'll talk about this. Yeah, and Carly says, it is a very fun exercise to feel how differently energy feels to each hand. I highly recommend it because it is wild how differently you perceive things from one hand to the other. Every now and then, it swaps. My left hand goes, you know what? I'm going to be receptive today. And I just run with it. I don't care. Not Coda says, with tarot, it's usually my left hand, but with feeling energy from crystals, etc., it's better than my right. And Ellie says, I did the card thing because I had a deck of cards out and used my left hand to take a random card after shuffling, and I grabbed the only single card in the deck randomly. And Sarah Winky says, when I do one hand, the left is stronger, but if I hold both hands out, I feel like the energy balances between the two. It does. Wah-ha. Isn't that cool? Cardinal says, for some reason, even as a kid, certain things had personality, and I could never explain that the left was more emotional and kinder, and the right was more intuitive and smart. People are weird, man. People are wacky. This is one of those exercises, it doesn't really mean anything unless you think it means something, but gosh, it's interesting. And when we're talking about things like the subtle body and the energy body, that's what we're talking about, is this stuff, projecting and receiving. Which hand does what job? Because oftentimes, like if you wanted to create a circuit, you can think of one hand as in and the other hand as out. So you can touch an energy source and create a circuit that runs in one hand, up that arm into your body, down the other arm and out the other hand. That's one way to visualize it. That's why I included this. Now this is another fun exercise to try. Because we're talking about, I'm getting you guys ready for the next couple of lessons. We're going to be talking about moving energy around, and I want you to have some idea of what energy feels like when you're about to be moving it around. This is an energy sensing exercise. You're going to take your hands, rub them together vigorously for 2 or 3 minutes. So like rub them together. Okay. And just keep going. Your hands are going to get hot. That's friction. We like friction. You can also clap your hands. What you're doing is getting the blood flowing to your hands, down your arms, into your hands. You're waking up all the nerves in your hands. You're also waking up the energy centers in the palms of your hands. There are, in some systems, chakras in the palms of your hands, or energy centers of some form. Whee, and away it goes. And there it is. Alrighty. Maybe 1 minute. Hold your hands about an inch apart. God, I love this one. Then move them towards and away from each other for about 1/2 inch. You should feel something. I feel it as heat. I feel that there is a ball of heat in between my hands. It's kind of squishy. It feels neat. So this is an exercise. There is no correct answer. This is for you to do and play with and figure out, what does energy feel like to you when you're holding it? Can you make that ball between your hands or the cushion or whatever thing is going in there? Can you make it bigger? Can you increase it? Play with it. You're not doing anything with it. You're only moving the energy of you around and waking up the energy centers in your hands and then practicing moving and molding energy. If you feel tired afterwards, you should ground and center and then shield. But that's the whole thing. That's all of it. AC says you would open it around yourself as a circle, a sphere around yourself. Yes. You can do this sort of thing. Now take your hands, right? They're all awake. They're open, right? Touch other parts of yourself. It always tingles. So funny. It tickles. Can you feel other energy centers in yourself? If you've got somebody nearby who trusts you, that you're like, can I do this to you? Wake up the energy centers in your hands and then touch them. I mean, not like touch them. You're not petting them or anything. You're going to stay about 1 inch above their skin. But what do you feel? What do you sense when you do that? This is one of the entry points to doing things like Reiki and energetic healing. This is a sensing exercise. You're not doing anything. You're not, don't go a step further yet. This is what do you sense? How do you sense it? What does it feel like to you? Lily says, isn't that similar to Reiki in a sense? Yeah, I just said that. Grecia says, mine feels like a buzzing heat that feels like jelly. And Nevaeh says, tingly, tingly. Beans says, mine was squishy, tingly, and small. You can mess with it. You can move it around. A lot of people will feel it as tingly, kind of squishy. That's because the fields in your hands are overlapping there. So what you're feeling is energy fields moving through one another. Parchmento says, can certain people work with certain energies better than others? For example, one person finds it easy to work with energy in crystals, while the other finds it easy to work with energy in fire. And if so, why is that? It's absolutely possible. Yes, some people are just really good at it. And some people say that it's because, there's an inherent elemental aspect to the way that you interact with the world. Could be. Could be a matter of, I don't know, what element is dominant in your natal chart from astrology. Or it could be, what's your personality like? What have you been exposed to more? What feels more comfy? There's no value judgment to it. It's just, some people are just better at some things. But just because you might have a natural ability and a capacity to be really good with crystals, doesn't mean you can't improve it through study and work. And it also doesn't mean that a person who does not have that natural ability can't learn to be that good. You can study your way into mastery too. Carrie said, it felt like moving air to me. And Rosemary Kisses says, mine felt kind of like static. Oh, and Elia says, my hands got stiff and painful from this. Was it the rubbing or the clapping? Because sometimes it hurts the joints in your hands if you have connective tissue issues. I would try rubbing, and instead of rubbing vigorously, rub gently in a circle. Okay. So, and only the palms, like kind of pull your fingers back up out of the way, your thumb out back of the way, and only rub the palms together in small, gentle circles, because that will also wake up the energy centers in the palms of your hands. And Lily says, in between my hands, it was cold afterward. Yes. That's because you pulled energy into that part, and then it went back again. Like the tides. Forward, and then back. And Cardinal says, I don't really feel anything right now. Keep practicing. Some people find it more difficult than others to perceive what the energy is doing. It doesn't mean you can't learn, and it doesn't mean that it's not still happening. It just means it's difficult for you to pick up on. So prayer and worship. I am going to go into divination and worship in their own lesson. That is the 7th lesson. But I wanted to pick it up real quick right here. Casey says, I'm not too late. You're always too late. Nah, you're fine. It'll be recorded so you can catch up on everything else. To pray is to connect to an energy source, the world, or your deity. And you raise energy. You imbue it with your intent. A prayer is often for, good health, wealth, benefits, well wishes, prayer for the divine glory of whoever you're worshiping. And then you release the energy with your intent to your being. You can use that kind of energy work as magic as well. You don't have to connect to energy, raise energy, hold it, imbue it with intent, and then release it into a formalized spell. You don't have to. Low magic and kitchen magic allows for wishes and prayer type spells to just happen. You can direct it towards whatever entity that you're working with. So if you're working within the Greek pantheon, you could do a real quick love spell towards Aphrodite. Aphrodite, please bring attractive men to give me gifts. I don't know. Something like that. Raise energy, imbue it with whatever your intent was, and then give it to the entity. There's a kind of, really fast, easy sort of magic. Fast and easy. This is why a lot of Christian witches will simply pray very strongly. They'll invoke the names of archangels or of God or Jesus or whoever to add their power to their prayer and, make it real in the world. People who worship other religious groups and religious frameworks can do the same thing. That's part of what prayer is. That's why when I say, energy magic or energy work is magic, divination, and worship, that's why worship gets included as a part of energy work. I see typing in the chat. Lily says, do archangels originate in Christianity? Technically, they originate in Judaism, but they're a part of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So, all of the above. In my head, there was more about prayer. And prayer type magics. You can think of a prayer type magic as being, instead of like using any physical prop, spell element. So there's no sigil, there's no crystals, there's no spell jar, there's no pouch, there's none of the trappings, none of that. It's just energy. Purely energy. With none of the extra fun bits to back it up, make it stronger, give it an extra energy source to feed on while it's doing its work. It's dependent only on what you can personally pull up, manipulate, and send into the world. So in some ways, it's limited. It depends on how good your relationship is with other entities that you may include in your prayer magic stuff. Okay. You guys have a test. Sorry. Not sorry. Not sorry at all. There is a test. It is in the Google Classroom. Some people have already done it. Here's the instructions. The test is open book, open notes, open teacher. You can ask me things. I'm not going to tell you the answers. But I'll help you understand a concept if, like, you read one of the test questions and go, bleh? I don't know those words. You can ask me and I will explain it. Again. If you're taking this as your focus, you want to pass this test. If you want to continue and do more magic stuff, you want to pass this test because it means that you're less likely to, cut yourself in half and or blow yourself up. Carrie says, I feel more sorry for you having to write the test. I've already written the test. And my sense of humor came out in it. Hopefully you will notice that some of the answers are meant to be funny. I was aiming for humorous. Think of this as more of a self-assessment. Before we move on to the next couple of lessons in particular, the next lesson is going to be on blessing, enchanting, imbuing, and empowering things. Kind of a big one. The lesson after that will be on banishing, cleansing, cord cutting, those sorts of things. So the lesson after this is on moving energy into something to create a thing. And the one after that will be moving energy into something in order to eliminate a thing. Okay? Broadly speaking. Not Coda says, will we get the question wrong if we click the funny answer as well as the correct answers? It depends on if I think you believed that the funny answer was the correct one. Lentia says, oh, I would have picked serious answers and not the funny ones. Oh. Nova says, if you click all of the options, it may be a bit hard to check. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, if you just clicked everything, I mean, technically you would have selected all the correct answers. But you also would have selected all the wrong answers. So you can't be both wrong and right at the same time. Don't do that to me. Yeah, what is energy work? Sleeping. Pro tip. That's not the right answer. You can tell that I wrote the test right after doing the slideshow for this, so I mean, if you can justify it and argue with me, okay. It's all very subjective, but also, no. The right answer is eating. You do this to me just to make me squeak. Oh, it's a witch talk trend? Cord cutting is a witch talk trend? Oh, that's why so many more people have been talking about it lately. Oh boy, I'm gonna blow you guys' brains. I don't watch TikTok, witch talk either, because, I thought, I was like, oh, I should make a witch talk account, and then when people are doing things wrong, I can respond, and I was like, I'm sorry, I have a life outside of yelling at teenagers on the internet. Good question. Ali says, are there multiple answers for questions or only one answer per question? If you can select more than one, you should select more than one. If you can only select one, there's only one correct answer. All those tick box ones, there's more than one correct answer. Some of them have 2, some have 3, some have 4. Oh yeah, there's a new moon ritual tonight, so run. But yes, there's a test. You have until the 18th to finish this test. Like, it's gonna be up.